Word economy has always been my foremost goal as a writer. I want to say as much as I can, with as little as possible. Consequently, I'm a collector of great quotes. They shine a light on the other side of known truths. Within a few lines, they contain the ultimate and concentrated power of writing. I've only read a few that really make me pause and consider the world. Every generation brings a few 1 in a billion geniuses. Nikola Tesla was one of them. He was a full order of magnitude above the line at which genius is defined. As a child, he memorized entire books and flew through the hardest academic subjects. Throughout his life, he mastered 8 languages. You will not find a long list of people who were smarter than Nikola Tesla. He paid a steep price for his brilliance. He was unable to relate to others. He never had a romantic partner, and his mental health was a massive problem. Tesla wasn't commercially minded. He didn't monetize his 700 plus patents, though many others got rich off his ideas. His inventions, alternating currents, remote controls, induction motors, and many more, had a lasting effect on engineering. Many of the things you use are extensions of his innovations. You wouldn't have them without Tesla. Beyond his ability to invent and understand the most complex concepts, he had one ability that separates a super genius from your normal genius. He could see far into the future. He was a visionary. Tesla made one of the most accurate and detailed predictions that any human has ever made. He said this of technology in 1926. When wireless is perfectly applied, the whole Earth will be converted into a huge brain, which in fact it is, all things being particles of a real and rhythmic whole. We shall be able to communicate with one another instantly, irrespective of distance. Not only this, but through television and telephony, we shall see and hear one another as perfectly as though we were face to face, despite intervening distances of thousands of miles. And the instruments through which we shall be able to do this will be amazingly simple compared with our present telephone. A man will be able to carry one in his vest pocket. Sound familiar? And yet many people thought he was crazy. Don't be afraid of big, bold ideas from really smart people. History has a habit of turning madmen into geniuses. Small is a relative term, and in the case of Mauthausen, it was a small concentration camp. It was your run-of-the-mill hell incarnate for Jews and outcasts. More than 130,000 people lost their lives there. This camp is famous for its stairs of death, on which emaciated prisoners were forced to carry 30 to 50 kilogram granite rocks over and over again, despite many of them weighing around 45 kilograms. If you fell, you were maimed, rendered unable to work. You were usually executed fairly shortly thereafter, or you were left in prison to suffer for a few days first. There were countless horrifying games that guards played with prisoners, the details of which I won't get into here. At the end of the war, as the camps were liberated, they began cleaning out and inspecting Mauthausen. One inspector was patrolling through the dark and shadowed cells of Block C, an area where nearly all who entered either died or left only to attend their own execution. Inside of one cell, he found, scratched on the wall, "If there is a God, he will have to beg for my forgiveness." The line sent a chill down my arm. It brought the image of a God on his knees, begging for his life, about to be murdered by one of his own creations. It's important to remember lines like this. Our minds tend to become soft and presumptuous of our luxuries. The paradox of happiness is that it requires we acknowledge the suffering of others. I first discovered the internet in the 1990s. We had a dial-up connection that cut off every 4 hours. If you searched for shoes, it pulled up a bunch of mom-and-pop Joe's Shoe Store websites. Traditional SEO competition was non-existent. But one thing that was the same, how rude the people were. They used fake names. Their behaviour was just as acidic. Insert Oscar Wilde, the Irish poet, and writer who, in my book, can do no wrong. He is a machine gun of epic quotes. He knew nothing of the internet nor comment sections. But he seemed to have a great pulse on human nature. He said of people, "Give a man a mask and he'll show you his true face." With that, please consider as you go back to your keyboards that the person you are responding to is another human being. I have yet to see a comment section debate lead to any meaningful learning. Don't fall into the trap. Treat people with the same respect you'd give them when looking them in the eyes. I used to coach swimming in the early 2000s. It probably won't surprise you that my most challenging group was the middle school boys. But where a few of them were difficult, others were in need of help. They were different. Consequently, they were bullied frequently at school. They would come in upset about how their day had gone. I identified with them on so many levels, as I've spent my entire life having people tell me, "You are one weird guy." I would reassure them that they were simply misunderstood and that they were in good company. Some of the greatest people who ever lived were treated as weirdos. Friedrich Nietzsche, another mega genius, was in this camp at one point too. He was, by very definition, different than his peers. People tend to attack things they don't understand. Throughout his life, he proposed many wild and brilliant ideas, faced his own share of critics, and endured his own moments of self-isolation. One line he wrote, that I encourage any who feel misunderstood to remember, "And those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music." Humanity is filled with wild and shimmering variety. Those who see different and attack are afraid of their own authenticity. Don't shy away from living your own truth. If you haven't been told you're weird a few times along the way, you aren't doing it right.